In May of 1920, President Nixon announces a series of large-scale bombing raids on North Vietnam. This is the first significant attack since his predecessor, and it includes up to about 120 warplanes.
Dwight D. Eisenhower was born on October 14, 1890, in Denison, Texas. He was the third of 7 brothers, and he grew up in a very religious family. He graduated from West Point College in 1915, and after that he married Mamie Dowd and had 2 sons, but one of them died at the age of 3. His other son joined the United States Army, and later became the U.S. Ambassador of Belgium. Eisenhower was the 34th president, and he was strongly against communism, Korea, and corruption, winning him the presidential spot by a landslide in 1915. Soon after starting in office, he used many nuclear threats to conclude the Korean War with China. And he gave much priority to inexpensive nuclear weapons with the goal of keeping pressure on the Soviet Union and reducing federal deficits. He contributed to the end of McCarthyism by openly invoking the modern expanded version of the executive privilege. And during his presidency, he sent federal troops to Little Rock, Arkansas, in order to enforce federal court orders to desegregate public schools and protect the Little Rock Nine.
William Calley was a lieutenant during the Vietnam War. He was charged with 6 cases of premeditated murder in the death of 109 Vietnamese citizens, including women and children. He was a platoon leader in Charlie Company, 1st Battalion, the 20th Infantry, 11th Infantry Brigade of 23rd Division. Lieutenant Calley gave the Americans a bad name with the cases of premeditated murder, and that caused the Americans to lose support for the war by its people, and it shows the hate that war brews.
Henry Kissinger was an American diplomat and political scientist who received the Nobel Peace Prize. Along with this, he also served as National Security Advisor and Secretary of State in the administrations of Nixon and Ford. In 1967, Peace Initiative, he was the mediator between Washington and Hanoi. He also played a key role in secretly bombing Cambodia to disband the People Army of Vietnam and the Viet Cong. His presidency was really controversial, but important because of many foreign policies he helped make, and that is Henry Kissinger. Ho Chi Minh was inspired by the Bolshevik Revolution, and he joined the Communist Party because of this and traveled to the Soviet Union at the end of World War II. Viet Minh then took control of Hanoi, and North Vietnam was born.
Le Duan is the founder of Indochina Communist Party. He was imprisoned by the French 2 times. After that, he joined the Viet Minh. It was founded by Ho Chi Minh, and it was an anti-French communist-led front. He was the leader of the party after Ho Chi Minh's death in 1969, and he was adept at party organization and mobilization, and mobilizing human resources during war, but he was not so good at making foreign policy and peacetime economics.
Lyndon B. Johnson was the 36th President of the United States, and in total he sent more than 500,000 troops to Vietnam. He first involved America by sending 2 battalions, or about 3,500 Marines, to assist the Southern government. And he inherited the war from Kennedy and got us involved by helping out the South.
Operation Rolling Thunder was an attack by the U.S. 2nd Air Division on North Vietnam from March 1965 until November 1968 during the Vietnam War. The objectives of this were to boost the morale in the Republic of Vietnam, to persuade North Vietnam to cease its support in the Communist Party, and to cease the flow of men and material into South Vietnam.
In 1961, in order to help support the Southern Vietnamese troops, JFK orders more support for the Southern Vietnam government. This is when we started getting involved in the war.
Le Duc Thao was born October 14, 1911, and died October 13, 1990. He was a Vietnamese revolutionary, general, diplomat, and politician. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize along with United States Secretary of State Henry Kissinger in 1973, but he declined to accept the award. In 1930, he helped found the Indo-Chinese Communist Party, and also from 1930 to 1936, and again from 1939 to 1944, he was imprisoned by French colonial authorities. After his release in 1945, he helped lead the Viet Minh, the Vietnamese independence movement against the French, until the Geneva Accords were signed in 1954. In 1948, he was in South Vietnam as Deputy Secretary, head of the Organization Department of Cochin China Committee Party. He then later joined the Lao Dong Politburo of the Vietnam Workers' Party in 1955, and what is now called the Communist Party of Vietnam. In 1982, Tho was named by Hanoi to act as chief advisor for the Kampuchean United Front for National Salvation, otherwise known as the FUNSK, and later to the Nascent People's Republic of Kampuchea. Tho's mission was to ensure that Khmer nationalism would not override Vietnam's interest in Cambodia after the Khmer Rouge was overthrown.
February 22nd, 1969, the National Liberation Front and North Vietnamese launched an offensive. Rocket and mortar attacks against 115 bases, towns, and cities in South Vietnam. This day, more Americans were killed than any other day in the war. The losses are not reported per day, but spread out to recreate a percentage of ever-decreasing numbers of casualties. Richard Nixon strengthened the Southern Army to make them less dependent on American troops. This began to end the war for American soldiers. He took us out of the war, but that also caused Vietnam to fall to communism.
Operation Chopper took place in 1962 on January 12th. It was in the South Vietnam, and it was the first time the U.S. forces participated in major combat in the war. Only 6 Vietnamese were killed, and there were 0 American casualties. In January 1972, Nixon announces troop withdrawals and reveals that there are secret talks being conducted with North Vietnamese. In March, North Vietnamese began a major offensive across the DMZ. This is the biggest battle of the war.
On August 2nd, 1965, the USS Maddox fired on North Vietnamese PT boats, who were responding to opium attacks. USS Turner Joy reported attacks that didn't actually happen, resulting in the Tonkin Gulf Resolution. 1972, the Watergate scandal takes place, led by your president, Nixon. Nixon's operatives, known as the White House Plumbers, were arrested while breaking into the NDH at the Watergate building. But before Nixon could be removed from office because of this, he resigned.